All right, I think that we are live. Coach
All right.
Cicely,
Good morning.
good morning.
So, for today's topic, we are going to discuss communication with mostly with our parents, but we're going to talk about like that generational communication. Is your communication with your family, is it a generational curse? Like, is it a problem? So over the past few weeks, we've been talking about communication in relationships, and last week we talked about the four types of communication. We talk about, are you a passive, you know, communicator? Are you a passive aggressive communicator? Are you assertive? What are your types of communication? Some people may be passive, some people may be aggressive, some may be passive aggressive. But the more we go through life, we really want to be that assertive communicator. So last week, we the assignment was to try to be more assertive, but it's like, how do I do that? How do I be more assertive when I grew up, in a household where we really talk aggressive to each other, where I grew up in a household where we really never talk to each other at all. Nobody actually talks about their feelings, or nobody really confronts each other. Or I grew up in a household where we did express our feelings, but we kind of like were it was like, we're subliminal. Sometimes we are, sarcastic, or we deny our problems. There's a lot of different ways that everyone talks to each other, and it really just goes back to how you were raised. So the question that I really want to ask people is, how were you talked to when you were growing up? How does your family communicate in your home? And honestly, I think that people don't realize that the communication in their home may be a little toxic until they grow up and they start getting into other relationships, and maybe their partner or their children start to say, mom, like, why are you talking to me like that? Like that, like now, especially in this generation now, where I feel like everybody is starting to understand mental health and are connecting to their mental health, and they're realizing their unhealthy habits and traits, and they really want to find out, like, where do I get this from? Right? Everybody wants to find out, why am I like this? So then they start to say, like, wait a minute, I think this goes back to how I was raised. This goes back to my childhood. So I think that now that this is happening, everybody's starting to realize that a lot of these things started in the home, and now they grew up like this, and it's affecting their relationships. It's affecting their children. And now their children are growing up like this, and now their children are, you get parents and children who have conflict, and they're yelling at each other. They don't have the proper communication with each other. You have parents who don't really know how to talk to their children. They don't listen to their children. They talk at their children. They don't talk to them. And children have a hard time, expressing themselves to their parents. And so instead they go to their friends, or, they go find that love and attention outside of the home, because they can't find that at home because of communication. So one of the biggest things that I've been noticing a lot with communication, and is that you? Me? One of the things.
That was me. I'm muted. Myself. I just.
I was like, oh, is that me? One of the biggest things that I've been noticing with communication and relationships with parents and children, and I asked the question is, well, why don't you say anything when your parent talks to you this way? They can't. That's their answer. That's the response that I'm getting is, I can't say anything to my mom. I can't say anything to my dad when this is an issue, and I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, what? Like, parents say things like, I raised you. I brought you into this world. I'll take you out.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
This is my house. That room you sleeping in, then clothes you wear. So it's like almost as if like everything that they've given their child, they're saying, I can take this away from you. So it's like,
They're terrified to communicate.
exactly, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't, so now the child is like, well, I can't even say how I feel, because if I say how I feel, my parent is going to make me feel like I'm wrong for saying this, and I'm going to get everything taken away from me. So I bottle it up, I keep it in, and now children end up growing up becoming that passive communicator. They don't want to tell how they feel. They don't want to, they keep those feelings in. They allow people to take advantage of them. They allow people to walk all over them. This is how passive communicators are built, because of things like this. They're not allowed to say how they feel, because again, the parent, it starts back at home, because the parent does not allow them to. They can't put their feelings out there. They can't express themselves, their needs, their opinions. So they start to feel, they can't feel happy about certain things. They don't make eye contact. All of these things, like when they're talking to people, this is what happens when you become that passive communicator. But again, because of how your parent made you feel when you were a child. So now when you grow up in the workplace, you may allow your boss to talk to you any kind of way, and when your boss, you say, hey, I'm sick, I can't come in. No, you gotta come in. You're like, but I'm sick. Oh, too bad. When you know that when you're sick, you should be calling out,
Right. Yeah, really.
Exactly. Or like when you're in a relationship with your partner, if you feel like you don't like something that your partner is doing, and you know that you should speak on this, but you allow them to take advantage of you. You allow them to take advantage of your emotions. You allow things to go wrong in certain relationships because, again, being that passive communicator, you don't express your feelings. You don't say anything. And again, it goes back to that childhood.
And you can also find yourself communicating with different styles for different situations, correct? Because like I would normally say that I'm an assertive communicator, but my parents argued all the time. And so in my relationship, I find myself wanting to avoid conflict. Yeah. So it's like, I'm just like, all right, I'll be assertive for, a little bit. And then after a while, I'm just like, oh, well, whatever,
Right. Exactly. And there is definitely, you do have those people too who, the thing about the styles of communication is like, you can be like, I think about it as like, like our moods, right? Because you know how our moods, like we can wake up in a good mood throughout the day, we get irritated, we might be okay. Like communication is like that as well. Like our styles of communication can be like that throughout the day. We may feel like we want to like express our feelings about certain things at work throughout the day, but then with our family, we might be real assertive and be real strong communicators and advocate for things in our families. But then when we with our friends, we might be a little passive aggressive. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's just sometimes the styles of communication can switch throughout like different situations. But then like, I feel like also like, this is how people tend to have like that inconsistency of communicating, like, why is it that we can't be assertive all the time? Why can't we be assertive all the time? Like, and I also think that comes with that self-esteem, where, and again, going back to that childhood, sometimes we get told by our parents or, growing up that we shouldn't say things, right? You're not supposed to say things. We get taught like certain things we are not supposed to say, certain things you keep in the house, certain things you just, that's that generational stuff, right? We talk about culture, we talk about generational things, certain things happen. And this is a new day and time now. And I feel like we should be teaching our children, like, it's okay to express, it's okay to talk. It's okay to discuss certain issues and matters, because you want them to be more assertive. You want them to go to work and be able to express themselves when things are not okay with their boss, in their relationship. You don't want them to feel like they can't express themselves at work and in their relationships and at school or with their friends, because this builds up that passive communicator or that aggressive communicator or that passive aggressive communicator.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is interesting. Because just thinking about my own situation, I can either go from assertive to aggressive or
Yeah.
assertive
Yeah.
to passive. I never go passive aggressive,
Right.
right? I never go passive. That is a pet peeve of mine, but
Right.
but just thinking about that, right? Because sometimes I'll go to passive because I have fear that I'm going to go aggressive.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Right. When I'm in like certain emotional situations. Yeah.
Yep. I can honestly say that is me. Because I think I said last week when I was doing the live that I was an aggressive communicator. I was definitely, but I can honestly say in my family, we talk aggressive. Like everybody just about talks aggressive. And I was saying how like in my home, when I was growing up, like in my whole family, everybody talks aggressive, but our aggression comes out of love. Like, and then we talk about that, like that generational thing. I think about how my mom was, my grandmother. This is how she talked. My mom was the only child. And this is when my mom was the only child, she didn't feel like that was love.
It was tough love.
It was tough love. She did not feel like that was love when her mom was talking to her like that. But then as she started to grow up, she's like, now I see why my mom was talking to me like that, because she wanted me to make sure that I had tough skin, because this world is not an easy place to live in, especially back then,
Yeah.
So this is what she would tell us. So that now we growing up and she talking to us all, a little harsh and stuff. And we like, why
Who
she
are you
talking?
like you talking to me sideways? Who are you talking to?
Like that? Like, and
That's
then,
what we say. You talking to me sideways. Like
exactly.
you better straighten that out.
Exactly. But now, like as we were growing up, we were, kids, we crying, like we get into trouble and things like that. But now as we grow up, we like, mommy just, she love us. She just, this is how she passionately talk. Like, but that's how she, when we would say things like, Mom, why are you talking crazy to us? Like, and she like, oh, okay. Like, sometimes people don't even realize that they're talking this way until you point it out to them, and then they'll explain it. She would explain like, I love you. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to teach you something. So like, and I feel like that's how my family talks, like everybody in my family talks so aggressive to each other. But everybody is so emotional, so I think, and that's why I said my family, we talk aggressive out of passion, out of love, never to hurt anyone, never to like really bash anyone. But then I had to teach everybody, like, there's different styles of communication, and this type of aggression can actually hurt someone, even if that's not the intention. The way we communicate to each other is not okay. We can't talk like this in public because people are going to look at us like, what the heck is wrong with them? Why are they talking to each other like that? Like,
I mean, yeah, every family is going to have its own culture, but I think once you start stepping out into the world and you are telling people like you mentioned last week that you talk with your hands, right? I do a lot of that also, and
all the time.
But there are a lot of things, especially I think because I left, New Orleans and young, and I was just kind of like on my own, and we all know bits and pieces of my story, but I think because of those experiences I drastically shifted some things, and so I actually became more aggressive at some point, and then I've softened since being with my partner, because she's very sensitive, and so she would always call me out, why are you talking to me like that, and this and this, and I'm like how you say your mom was, I was just like, I'm not trying to say nothing, like I'm just talking, what are you talking about, and now I'm getting pissed off because it's like you just telling me that my normal communication is offensive. But I had to think like, okay, how do I go back and say, well, my intention is not this. So what do I need to change so that I can get to my objective, which is clear communication that can be, received. Right. And so that came a lot of that inner work for me, like, all right, let me go back and really see what am I doing or saying, or what tonality am I using that is being misinterpreted in a way that I'm not intending.
Right,
And
exactly.
that's the work that I had to do, which brings me more on the side of now assertive and less on the side of aggressive.
Right, exactly. And I can honestly say for me, what changed my aggression in communication was having a child. Having a child. That's exactly because I didn't want to be the parent. I don't want to repeat the generational communication. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk like that. You know,
I remember how that was for me.
yeah. I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know, and my child is, like I said, this is a new day and time now. This generation is different, and he expresses himself. So I have to be very careful of how I communicate, you know, my frustrations and concerns. And I have to be definitely have to be assertive, you know. So and so being, I think I can honestly say being a parent has changed my style of communication with my own child, because again, I have to think like now that he starts to grow, if I talk to him this way, he is going to go out and he's going to go to that school. He's going to talk to his friends like this. He's going to talk to the teacher
like this. He's going to be getting a call home.
Exactly. And he's going to talk to us this way. So I'm like, nope, we got to make sure that, you know, the way that, you know, I was raised and the way that we talk to each other as a family, it does not affect my child. And then when he grows, he doesn't create those same type of communication when he starts to grow his own family.
Yeah, my parents talk to me like a grown adult.
Yes. Yes, I'm telling you. That's how and I think it could be like a culture thing. I'm telling you, because, and that's why I said, like, is it
generation thing?
Generation
like, y'all definitely talk to me like,
exactly.
Like we was homies, and
exactly. And I think that's what I said is, so that's why we asked, like,
love though, you could tell
with love, with love.
You can't talk to your kids like that now.
Exactly, you can't. And so, like, that's why I said, like, like we said, is this the generational communication, is it actually a problem for you? Is this a curse? Like, is this causing issues for you? Like, because it may not cause issues for everyone, you know. It may not be affecting any of the relationships that you have with your friends or your family.
Or you might not recognize it too. You know what I mean? Like, if you're watching this and you're wondering, like, is this an issue? Right? Because I think that's a hard pill to swallow too.
Yes.
Especially, you know, we like to blame everybody else for our communication failures, and a lot of the relationship issues fall on communication. You
exactly
mentioned that, and so we always want to blame everybody else. Oh no, it's their fault that we had this issue and that fall now. Oh, now it was their fault that I got, you know, fired from this job because whatever, the way I was communicating with them, you know. And so it's like, just swallow that pill. Like, just think like, okay, yo, if everybody else got a problem with you, maybe the problem is not everybody else. Maybe there's something going on that you need to reevaluate for yourself.
Exactly. And that's why I think, like, you know, it's important to, you know, we have to check ourselves and, you know, say, like, all right, like, I know I could say this is how I was raised, but as we start to get older, we have to really start to take that responsibility and say, what can I do to make this change? You know,
say you 30, 40, 50 years old. What you talking about? How you was raised? Like,
right, exactly.
I say, like, come on, take some ownership over it.
Yeah.
You know, hire Coach Sis as your therapist.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, exactly.
You know, come to your Dollar Growth Club meetings. Like, get the tools and resources that you need to start taking responsibility. We cannot be, you know, this old now talking about when I was a kid, this happened, and this is why I can't get right now. It's like, that's the reason why you should be getting right now. That's why you should be doing these things.
Exactly, because, you know, because as you start to continue to grow and get older, you're going to see, like, you're going to be losing jobs. Like, you're going to be losing relationships, you know, like, you're going to be losing family members, all these things, you know, because you don't want to change the way that you communicate. You don't feel like it's a problem, and it is, you know. And I think, like, it takes for people to do some real shadow work. It takes for them to really just, like, be honest with themselves and be like, you know what, okay, you got to really be aware. You know, you have to be aware, like when you're communicating and say, like when you're talking to someone and you start to, you notice that you're getting louder. You notice that you're starting to get real aggressive. Like, oh wait, let me take a step back. I think I'm starting to do this again. And even say that, acknowledge it. You know, be like, you know what? I can feel myself getting pumped up. I can feel myself getting aggressive. Let me take a step back. Let me take a break. And we can have this conversation again when I calm down. That's when you start to, you know, you can say like, okay, I'm starting to recognize that I'm having this issue and I'm trying to work on this. Let me take a step back, you know? So, you know, I think it's important that, you know, as we're growing, as we're getting older and we start to realize like, yes, okay, maybe my family was the issue growing up. You know, my childhood played a part in this, like being in my home. This was a generational thing. But now that I'm older, you know, I have a family, I have a relationship, you know, I have a good job, and I don't want none of these things to be affected by that. How can I change that? What can I start doing now? Not next year in 2023, not when the ball drop, now. Because honestly, like that, something can happen today that can affect all of that before 2023 gets here. So what can you start doing?
I was actually about to ask you, so what would be a good like first step towards changing a generational curse?
I think that the first step is to really just be honest with yourself and just start, like, if you actually sat down, if you already know what the problem is, I think it'll be a good step to start sitting down and actually do an inventory of your communication style. Sit down, write a list, you know, and be honest with yourself, you know, like, you know, sit with yourself, be honest, and it may hurt a little bit because this is what, you know, doing some shadow work does to you. You got to be real. And write it down. Like if you say, you know what, I am aggressive, you know, I jump in people's face when I talk to them. Like, you know, like I start yelling when I talk to people. I overtalk when people start, you know, talking about their feelings. You know, I deflect.
Or the opposite of that too. Right? Like I don't stand up for myself. I tend to hide and crawl, you know, away from situations and conflicts.
Exactly. So I think that the first step is sit down, you know, take an inventory of your communication style that you have. Write it down, make a list of it. And then
a page long or
however long it is, because some people may have a short list, some people may not have a long list, you know. Some people may already know this and it may be easy for them to just like start jotting this stuff down. Some people may have to wait until like situations arise and then be like, oh, wait a minute, you know what? That's something that I noticed about my communication that I need to, that's not on my list. And I need to add that, you know, because sometimes, honestly, like I can honestly say for myself, I didn't even notice that I was doing certain things with my aggressive communication style until people like my friends, like my siblings, and like, you know, they would point it out to me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. So sometimes it's a situational thing where somebody has to point it out to you if you're not even noticing it yourself. So I think that, you know, between now and, you know, over the next like week or so, I think it's important for, you know, because you may not even get into a situation like that. So I think it's just trying to figure out like, you know, making that list and seeing like what is the communication style that is affecting you to be assertive, you know. And if you are assertive, then great. Like I think that's still a great way to still write down the list of what, like how you are assertive. Like what are some skills that you have that helps you to be assertive? Because then we could still talk about that as well. You know, we can talk.
Assertive communication style is the preferential communication.
That is the preferential communication style, because when you're assertive, then you state exactly how you feel. You feel like you listen without, you know, interrupting. And that's the thing I can honestly say about listening without interrupting, because some people take that as an offense and some people don't, you know. But there's just a way about when you're listening without interrupting, because I think it's more so just listening so you can allow like the other person who may not feel heard to be heard, you know. and like just making sure that you're expressing your feelings clearly, and you're just being more respectful. You're stating your needs. You stand up for yourself. You don't allow other people to manipulate you. You feel more in control of who you are. Like, you know that you can say, if your boss says no about something, you know that you know your rights. You know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I can take my day off because I have sick days. I got this many sick days. Like, you can hit them with the books. Because you have that
1-2 punch.
you know what to do, instead of like them saying, no, you can't take this day off, and you just don't take the day off, and now you at work sick. No, you got sick days. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a matter of like knowing how to like firmly advocate for yourself without violating the rights of others. Like, you can be assertive and you can, speak up for yourself and be respectful, but and not do, you're not hurting no one else's feelings,
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just basically it's just a way to create a respectful environment and communication.
Awesome. So what's the homework, Coach Sis?
So that's
what people have to do is to write that list.
Yes, the homework is writing that list, talking and explaining, doing some deep diving on what is your communication style, so that we can really figure out you can figure out, or anybody can figure out how their childhood, communication really is affecting them now. Make a list of all the communication issues that you're having, and is it affecting the relationships that you have with your friends and, your partners and things like that. But it's really based on how you were raised. I want you to really go back and think about your childhood in your home, in the communication with your families. You can even put on that list the different types of how you were raised, like the different type of communications that was happening in your home. So
you can draw parallels too. Even
exactly
put like that list, and then put the list of how communication was, in your home, and then communication with like now,
yes.
Then you can look at the parallels and see like, oh wow, this I got this. I can see exactly where I got this from.
Exactly. And once you start to make it, when that epiphany starts to happen, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I got to change this. This can't. This got to stop. So I think that, will be the great way to make that connection and understand like where the change can take place.
Okay. I like it. I think it's a great assignment.
Yes.
All right, y'all. So Dollar Growth Club members, you heard that. Those of you who are not yet in Dollar Growth Club, get in Dollar Growth Club. All right. DollarGrowthClub.com, and do your homework, right? Do this work. Don't just let us have these conversations. Don't just let, Coach Cicely be up in here dropping all the gems, and then you not go and implement them and not go and do things that can help you in your life, right? This is that shadow work that she's talking about. So we definitely want to all make sure that we recognize that, because like we said earlier, communication breakdowns are where we fail in life, right? Like a lot of times when we fail in life, we talk about we are social creatures, and so our social interactions impact everything from how we have our life experience to our longevity in life. To be honest with you, when we start thinking about social connections and how it correlates positively to longevity of life. So so many things there. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's great.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Well, enjoy the rest of your happy Wednesday.
Yes, happy Wellness Wednesday.
Yeah, Wellness Wednesday. Come on now with the emotional wellness and mental health. Better come through with it. Wednesday.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Have a great